lo spingere un pochettino. Basta. No, lascio. Basta. Yeah. Smells nice. It's difficult to predict on what will come out as wine. It's a very unusual vintage. Like we had more of them, but this one was particularly curious and a very dry growing season. We had rain to enough, let's say, to survive the vines. We also had to give the newly planted young vines water to survive the summer. And then we got into September, where the sugars indicated let's say the right levels, but the ripeness was absolutely not there. The seeds, when you look at them, they have to be a little bit brownish. They were yellowish green, and so picking then we would have ended up with wines with high alcohol, very disbalanced. We decided to even start with for the rosé to pick the biggest chunk. Actually, end of September, October, which is 14 days later than what we, let's say, theoretically should have been doing, was picking early because of the logics of sugar. And so what we did was starting extremely early for the base of the rosé, 17th of August, then stopping completely and doing other things, and waiting for rain, and then ending up, instead of mid-September, what would be the usual picture for the rosé, starting end of September, early November or early October, sorry, for starting with the rosés, which is absolutely ridiculously late. So at this moment, when you open the tanks, I must say we had the right juice, especially for the top wines. They were very balanced because we picked them after lots of rain we got. And without any damage, so the berries were impeccable, the skins were nice and crunchy, thick, and so the vines, they could get some volume again, and in the fruit. And so in the end, I'm not unhappy with, especially with the top wines. I'm not very convinced about the white wines because the skins were very thick. The taste is good. It's relatively concentrated, but also very strange. It's the vines, they shut down basically, and so it was either trying to search for concentration in terms of concentrating the sugars and drying them out, but the vines not nourishing the berries anymore because the cycle was finished, and so the Nerello was keeping on going. And yeah, the Magma we picked on 16th of October, which is extremely early. It's the earliest ever. So all the single vineyard wines were very condensed in the picking in a very short lap of time. Running between the rains to get enough rain in this and that vineyards. So the wines will tell their story, and I think it will be very good wines. But great wines is something else. I think great wines they represent also a balanced growing season, which was not the case. So here I think we will have wines with great personality, reflecting also this very special vintage. The only downside, I would say, besides the white, but we'll see, also the wines, they can tell their story, is that we have very little production this year. So we're running around 30% less, which is quite a lot, compared to an average vintage. The berries were quite good, I must say, because even passing everything here on the sorting table, we took out very, very little grapes. A few cases on the whole mass of production, which is peanuts in the end. So sorting table, yes, it was useful, but in the end, we took out some leaves and bits and pieces, but no substantial big problems. On top wines it makes sense, but even on a rosé, it was useful, but in the end, it was not a vintage to pick out many things. So yeah, we're actually October and we're already doing rackings. The fermentations are finishing for most wines, not the top wines which we picked only a week ago. So also that is very early. So it's it is a bit strange, and it's a strange feeling. The top wines and the high vineyards we would pick dopo i morti, which means after the 1st of November. That is completely, let's say, gone over the last years. We've gone 1 week earlier, like end of October, 20th of October. It is quite accelerated. It's very strange. But in a way, it's what we're going through in this period, in this era. So we'll see what the wines will tell. But I'm confident they will tell their own story, and it will reflect the vintages we have, without excessive alcohol, and that is a good thing. So I think the wines will be balanced in concentration. I believe. A harvest is not an easy concept because you can pick very early, very late, and basically you have two different wines. The picking is something that reflects the mindset and the idea, the concept of a grower. And so for me, when we pick grapes, I want a physical maturation, which means there is a taste and a flavor part in that, and there is also the color, and the acidic part in the wine. So the grapes for me need to have a physical ripeness, which is not just phenolic, but also the acid part, which is even more important because it expresses as a wine in please drink me or don't touch me. It's either generosity or a very, I would say, a closed wine, and a wine that wants to, doesn't want to be touched or tasted at a very early stage. So when you want to combine the generosity with a longevity, things become already quite complex. So you have to have the right phenolics without over-ripeness. You want to have a high or relatively high acidity without being harsh. So there needs to be a balance. And here we touch this magic world, which is balance, equilibrium in a wine. And that takes time because first of all, you have to have your own mindset right and defined, and to be able to make those wines. And then you also have to interpret to the best abilities your territory with, and that's the third part, the changing climatic and influence and of vintages, which are very, very different. Especially if I go back over the last 10 years, we have quite big differences. So that being said, we're talking about the physical aspect. There is also an energetic aspect, which is not just the lifespan of and the vegetative cycle of the vines, which in our region here in the Northern Valley closes about, let's say, mid-October, which is, let's say, the pre-phase of the last cycle where the vine shuts down before it goes into hibernation over the winter period, which is very nice because you have a very, very long vegetative cycle. So that's a very positive thing, to work on the soil, to give that identity with a long cycle into the grapes, the fruit, which becomes the wine with its story, profoundness, and identity and personality. Very important. There is also the energetic part, which many times is not or little taken into consideration, except for the biodynamic world. And so where it comes to biodynamics and the energetic part of the not just the wine making but also the grape growing. I'm looking for a maximum expression where I can, applying the moments in the zodiac and which are expressing to its best the fruit. Now that becomes even more complex because you end up obviously in bad weather in autumn. So we're talking about early mid October to early November. So that that is a difficult period to pick ripe without overripeness, and trying to combine that physical aspect of the grapes with the energetic moment where you have a maximum expression and expansion on the fruit and on the flavors. So combine that with the meteorological elements, where you can pick whether it's rain and sun or and the right moon phase, which is another aspect of a physical let's say environmental influence. You know, the harvest is a pretty complex and period to, if you want to set high standards, and if you want to pick very precise, crisp, crunchy, and good fruit. So, you know, it's not just this part of picking simply ripe, so to say, which is already quite a complex game. This is a combination of many different levels intermingled, which is very hard to achieve. So if I think back of the 2021 vintage, I think we achieved the ripeness. Unfortunately, we didn't get to the balance in the energetic side, which didn't really fit. It fitted in some phase or not. So one or two vineyards we could pick in this space, but not to the extent where I would have liked to not to pick. So I think we've got 2/3 right, but you know, for an absolutely profound and great vintage, you know, there was the 1/3 of the energetic part missing.